right, so the point of this whole series of lessons is to teach the engineering design process. And we are kind of mock building a solution to a problem. And we're using Mark Rober, who's a popular YouTube star with a little over 16 million subscribers to his YouTube channel, to help us identify the process, okay? So ultimately, at the end of this semester, what I'm hoping is that we've designed something, if nothing else on paper, how it would work, and then shot video of that and edited that and uploaded it to YouTube to the best of our ability. So to help us with that, we have a series of videos from Mark where he explains his process, and then we have activities that kind of match up with that. So the first video, he talked about how he'll take a topic. In this case, we are suggesting that we use the topic of food, and then identify scenes, problems, and solutions that would go with that. So the first assignment that we had was a brainstorming assignment where, using Jamboard, you identified two scenes, four different problems, and then three possible solutions. So for instance, a scene that you might interact with food might be the grocery store, or it might be the dining room table. It might be like the example that Mark Rober uses and works out is he's at his work table working on something and he's hungry. He wants a snack. So that's his scene, is his work table, his workbench. Okay. So it's just coming up with two scenes where a human being, preferably you, but any human being, might interact with food. If your problem is something else, then it's going to be a scene where that something else interacts with people, okay? So, but to make things simple for us, and since we're following Mark's process, if we keep with the same topic, we can use some of his scenes, some of his problems, some of the things that he does to make this assignment, a series of assignments, really a little bit easier for you, all right? So you have to identify two scenes, and then for each of those scenes, you come up with two problems. So if we're at the grocery store, it might be the grocery store has run out of your favorite food, your favorite snack, your favorite condiment. That could be a problem. If it's at a restaurant, it might be that you lose a fork, right? A fork falls on the ground. That's a problem. I now have a dirty fork. How do I do that? Or one of the examples that Mark gives in his brainstorming is he wants to get the attention of a waiter, right? And so how would he do that? It could be, in the kitchen. Another scene might be in the kitchen, you making breakfast in the morning. And that problem may be, I want to get the right amount of milk to go with my cereal so that it doesn't, get my cereal soggy too soon, or something like that. So you're going to come up with two problems that go with this scene and two problems that go with this scene. And that's why they're different colors. And then once you identify those problems, you're going to come up with possible solutions. So if this problem right here was at the grocery store and they've run out of my favorite snack, then what are three possible solutions? So one possible solution might be a device that goes on the shelf at the grocery store, that when that item is gone, you get notified, right? Or maybe you have another device that reminds you every time you get close to a grocery store to go into that grocery store and pick up whatever item. That way you never run out of it. So it doesn't matter that they don't have it there. Whatever it is, you come up with three possible solutions. Now, this is a good point to point out, a good time to point out, they don't have to be good solutions. They just have to be solutions. Anytime you brainstorm a problem, brainstorming is like mental regurgitation, right? Like you just throw it up and just throw it out there. You don't filter it at all. You don't try to think like, is this a good idea? Is this something that someone would buy? Is this something I would actually use? Is this something I know how to build? Is this something I have the resources for? You don't do any of that. You just throw it out there. Okay. And that's pretty much any time you brainstorm, that's what you do. It's just about ideas. Throw out ideas. Just throw them out, throw them out, throw them out, throw them out. Because what might have been filtered, something that you might have thought was like a horrible idea, or something that you didn't know how to build or didn't have the resources for, you may throw it out there and someone else in your group might say, oh, I've got something that'll fit that. I know how to build that. I know how to modify this thing that I have to make that fit. And so anytime we brainstorm, whether it's in design class or it's in the real world, brainstorm is a word that means just throw your ideas out there. Don't filter them. Okay. So it is quite possible that when you are done with this Jamboard, you've got a bunch of really silly ideas on here. That's okay. That's not a problem. We're not grading this by like, hey, are these good ideas or not? We're grading them by, are they ideas? Did you brainstorm? All right. So that when we get together in groups, if you did all of this, you get together with a group that everyone else did all of this, there's plenty of ideas there that a good idea is going to come from. All right. It's not all going to be structured around bad ideas. Like somebody's going to have a good idea that you can work with. So this assignment is just that. 2 different scenes, 4 different problems in 2 different pairs, right? And then 12 possible solutions, 3 solutions for each one of your problems. Once you have that Jamboard, then we got into groups and we talked amongst ourselves. And each group would analyze the problems and solutions that other people brought and say, hey, I like that one. I don't like that one. I think that one's really good, but I don't know what we would do with it. Or I like that problem. I don't know about that solution. And eventually narrow down to, hey, I really like that problem and I really like that solution. And that was what we settled on. Then we went, and we did this individually. So we went, the first Jamboard we did individually. Then we got in our groups and we picked one problem. Then we went back and individually took our problem and brought up 7 different requirements. So this one should actually be requirement number 1. And this one should be requirement number 2. So what do we mean by requirements? So the best example I can give is what Mark Rover is building. So he went through that first process, and one of the problems that he identified was he's at his work table, he's hungry, he wants a snack, he gets up to go get a snack, and by the time he goes, fixes his snack, has whatever conversations, comes back to the work table, he's lost 20, 30 minutes of time. So he's thinking, if I had something, some sort of machine or some sort of catapult, something that could just feed me snacks on demand, then I don't have to go anywhere, right? So he set about to build what he's calling a snackapult, a catapult that will launch snacks in his direction that he can eat. So now he sits down and he comes up with requirements. So what were the things that he thinks his design has to have? Well, it needs to have a trigger, right? I mean, that kind of makes sense. If it doesn't have a trigger, it just randomly fires snacks at him. That's like less useful and just more painful and entertaining for us, right? So he wants to have something that he can trigger when he's hungry. That's a requirement. Another requirement is that it has to be accurate, like 50% of the time. If it shot snacks in all different directions, it's not really useful. It's got to get like generally to his mouth where he can kind of catch it, right, in order to be useful. So he breaks down all of these different requirements. Some of them would fall into this camp of what we would call essential, meaning the build isn't successful, it doesn't have it. A trigger is a great example of that. If his catapult doesn't have a trigger, it just sits there and never launches, it's not the successful snack, right? Likewise, if it just launches whenever it's ready to, whenever it wants to, that's also a horrible device, because he could be sitting there working, all of a sudden, bam, an M&M to the forehead, right? Like that doesn't serve a purpose. So having a trigger would be an essential requirement. One of the things that he wanted was that he could have multiple snacks to choose from. That would fall into this category of non-essential requirement. It would be nice if he could just say, oh, I want an M&M, and it would like rotate and give him M&Ms, or I want a Reese's Pieces, and it would rotate and it would launch a Reese's Pieces. But if it only ever launched M&Ms, it would still be successful. So we would say that's a non-essential. Essential means it has to have it. Think of it another way. Needs versus wants. What are the needs? It needs to have a trigger. It needs to launch candy with a certain percent of accuracy, right? What does it want? I want it to be able to shoot different candies at me. I want it to be able to hold more than one candy so I don't have to reload it every single time. Does it have to? No, I want it to. So for this assignment, you would come up with 7 requirements, 7 limitations, things that it has to have or you want it to have, and then you organize them by things that, if it doesn't have this essential thing, it's not a successful build. And these things are wants. I really want it to have this. I really want it to do this, because anytime you're building something, everything is a matter of trade-offs. Sometimes you may have heard people use the phrase, time is money. And what that means is that in, the business world, when we're working for something, typically time has a value associated with it. So if we're building something, let's say we are general contractors and we're building a home, all right? Well, chances are that home is being funded through a loan. Somebody has provided, usually a bank, a loan that pays for the people, the equipment, the subs, the materials to build the home. And then when you sell the home, you take some of the money that you sell the home to pay off the loan. And that way you can make some money, right? If you sell the home for less than what you borrowed, you're not a very good businessman, right? You are losing money on the deal. You're not going to be in business for long doing that. Well, when you take out a loan, every day that money is outstanding, you owe interest to the bank. You're going to pay more money to the bank or whoever lent the money in order to still have that loan. And so when we say time is money, if you can borrow money for 30 days and then sell whatever you're building and pay off the loan, you're going to keep more of your money than if it takes you 60 days to do that. So the sooner you can build whatever you want to build and profit from it, the better off you're going to be. In Mark Rober's case, and kind of one of the career paths that we are teaching and talking about here, is if you want to be a YouTuber, it's a different sort of monetization. It's a different way of making a living. So the way it gets monetized, the way you make money as a YouTuber, is by creating videos that people watch, right? So if you only make one video Well, people are going to watch it once. Maybe they'll watch it twice, but then that's it. You got to keep putting out videos for people to watch in order to monetize or keep making money off that. But if the videos aren't any good, then they're going to stop watching your videos in the long run. So the trade-off for a YouTuber is, how quickly can I put a video out that has quality? So a guy like Mark Rober is thinking to himself, okay, my video is about this build. I want to get this build out as quickly as I can so people can watch the video. If I have this essential requirement that this catapult has to hold multiple rounds of whatever candy, or it's not successful, but it takes me an extra 2 days, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks to build, that's 2 weeks that my video isn't done and out there for the rest of the world to watch. It's 2 weeks that I'm not working on my next video. And so it ends up kind of being like a double whammy, right? It hurts his ability to make money on the video that he's almost done with, but it also slows down his ability to work on the next video. And so for a YouTuber, there's a trade-off. How many requirements does it have to still be a cool video, but that I can get that video out as quickly as possible? Because the quicker I get it out, the faster people watch it, and the faster I make money off of this, okay? So what you have to be thinking about as you build this is, what's the stuff that's cool that I want it to have, but I would be willing to get rid of, I could live without if I had to, versus the stuff that I can't live without it. Like, it's not a successful catapult if it doesn't have a trigger. I have to have these things, okay? That's what you need to be talking about and thinking through on this stage in this Jamboard. The next stage, where we're going next, so I'm shooting this video on Wednesday, February the 3rd, starting tomorrow, February. Let me back up. I'm shooting this video March the 3rd, starting March the 4th. We're going to be in groups, and we're going to start looking at our requirements and figuring out, okay, how do you build that? So it needs to have a trigger. How do we trigger it? Do we just use a string? Do we use like a gate, like, the kind of latch system you'd have on a gate? Mark talks about using a cable, like a brake cable from a bike. There are certain ways that triggers can be built. There are certain ways that you can launch candy. What do those look like? How do we write those things down? And then you start to settle on, what are we going to actually build? How are we going to actually build this? What do we want our design to look like? All right. So that's where we're going. We're going to be working in groups to actually break down our build into little bite-sized pieces so we understand exactly what it looks like. Mark's videos are in Google Classroom, so you can go into Google Classroom and watch the videos if you missed, or if you want to review certain ones and see how he's putting together the catapult, which is going to look really cool when he's done with it. And then we'll work in our groups, and we'll start to build our own projects and then shoot videos about them.